Hi everyone, my name is Alexis Marin, and I am here to present my action research project. So, my topic for my action research centers around the impact of small groups focusing on math fluency skills to improve math achievement. So, my research question was, how can I use daily small groups designed to focus on foundational fluency skills in my first grade classroom to improve student achievement measured by an increase on student math assessment scores at my school? So I chose this topic as well as this research question because the procedural fluency component of math was no longer being addressed during whole group math instruction. And this was due to the new implementation of the math flipped instructional model in classrooms. So the factors that initially prompted me to ask this question were that it's critical that students have foundational math fluency skills in order to be successful on both math lessons and on assessments. And this study was significant to me because student performance on math assessments revealed that students were not meeting all of the math mastery goals. So the goals for my action research were to have an increase in student mastery of both mid and end of module assessments, as well as an increase in students scoring either proficient or approaching proficient on both the mid and end of module assessments. So moving on to the methodology and work plan. So the setting that my action research was implemented was in my first grade classroom during the math instructional block. The class consisted of 26 students, and students received procedural math fluency instruction in a small group. Small groups had consisted of 5 to 6 students, and each group received 10 to 15 minutes of direct instruction in that small group. So initially, I looked at student math assessment data for both the Module 2 mid and end of module assessments. And this data really helped me determine the foundational fluency components that would be addressed during small groups. So these foundational fluency components consisted of partners to 10, team member decompositions, place value understanding, and 10 more, 10 less, 1 more, and 1 less. This small group instruction and activities consisted of math games, timed math exercises, and discussions focusing on number sense. A daily tracker and anecdotal notes sheet was used for student progress monitoring, and the tracker had each student's name, all of the fluency components, and an area to record group trends and misconceptions. So with the addition of the procedural fluency component to the math instructional block, it was expected that there would be an increase in student achievement on math assessments. Students would have a variety of opportunities to become fluent in many different areas. Data would indicate student mastery of all of the fluency components, and students could potentially make significant mathematical gains on assessments if they attended school each day to receive this small group instruction. So as far as data collection for this action research, I used a mixed method approach in which I collected both qualitative and quantitative sources of data. So for quantitative data, I used student test scores on the math assessments. I used student test scores on assessments to determine whether or not student assessment scores had increased as a result of implementing these small groups. For qualitative data sources, I used a checklist to progress monitor student mastery of the fluency components. I also used an anecdotal notes sheet for recording daily observations, student trends, group trends, and misconceptions that students were having with each of the fluency components. When it comes to triangulation, daily small groups focused on foundational fluency skills could potentially improve student achievement measured by an increase on student assessment scores. And this was measured by conducting student and group observations of daily fluency activities, interviewing students and groups on number sense questions, and recording student and group anecdotal notes that were focused on those common trends and misconceptions. So moving on to data analysis. So I had used baseline data from the Module 2 mid and end of module assessments. After implementing the small groups, I analyzed student mastery of the Module 3 end of module assessment, both the Module 4 mid and end of module assessments, the Module 5 end of module assessment, and both the Module 6 mid and end of module assessment. So all mid and end of module assessments had increased from the initial baseline assessments that were used, and analyzing student data had informed me that implementing daily small groups focusing on foundational fluency skills improved student math achievement because math assessment scores had in fact increased. So the outcomes of the study revealed that implementing small groups focused on foundational fluency skills improved student math achievements because student assessment scores had increased. And I feel that this happened because students were receiving the procedural fluency component of math instruction, which allowed them to continue to develop foundational skills that were necessary to have in order to be successful on math assessments. I feel that one success that I had was that students were engaged in the small groups. One difficulty of this action research was adjusting the rigor based on student data. I've learned that it is really important to be consistent with the procedure and implementation of the action research if you want it to be successful in your classroom. So as far as recommendations for future research, so the limitations of my action research were time and sample size. Due to the limited time frame for each group, it may not have been enough time for students to make significant mathematical gains. Sample size is also a limitation because the sample of students who received the small groups was not a random sample of students. The implications that I have for further action research is to continue the implementation of daily small groups focused on foundational fluency skills. I also want to help guide other teachers at my school on how to successfully implement these small groups. I'd also want to investigate and research other instructional strategies that would help improve my own instruction. And lastly, I would like to further research the benefits of incorporating fluency in the daily math instructional block and how that directly impacts student math achievement. So that concludes my presentation of my action research project, and thank you so much for watching.